My guest on this episode of Suds Search is a man who needs no introduction. Rand Fishkin is one of the most recognizable personalities in SEO. He is a co-founder and CEO of SparkToro. Previously, he co-founded SEOMoz, which later rebranded to Moz, along with his mother, Gillian. Moz is one of the most important brands in SEO, from Whiteboard Fridays to the Beginner's Guide to SEO to MozCon, and all the impressive tools Moz has created. Rand has been at the center of this incredible company from the start. Rand resigned from his board position at Moz in October 2020, just after we spoke. You can learn more about his personal journey and that of his company in his incredibly impressive book, Lost and Founder. I'll spend some of our conversation talking about the book, but honestly, I could have talked to Rand all day about it. I couldn't recommend the book more strongly. It's not just for SEOs. It's not just for entrepreneurs. It's an incredibly human story. Rand courageously tells all the great and gory details of his entrepreneurial life. I'm going to start our conversation talking about his newer company, SparkToro. I'll get Rand's reaction to some use cases for local SEO, and I'll pick his brain on a post he wrote titled 6 Ways SparkToro's Early Customers Use Our Product. Grab something cold to drink and join me for a conversation with Rand Fishkin. We talk about the importance of core values in business, how to become less reliant on the duopoly of Facebook and Google, why he chose to make canceling a subscription with SparkToro easier, and we'll spend a little time talking about his love for pasta, steak, and El Pastor tacos. Rand Fishkin, welcome to Suds Search. How you doing?
Good, Mark. Great to be here.
Well, I saw on your sheet that you're not an IPA fan, which is, sadly, I drink a lot of them, but I love this Hefeweizen from Dovetail. They're right across the street from us. I understand you're drinking something here too.
Yeah, let's see. So this is, here. I love the logo. Old Sigil.
I'm obsessed with that can. Wow.
Yeah, right? Like, that's legit. It looks like the Hunger Games sort of combined with something from Star Wars. I don't know. It's kind of killer. Here, let's get the sound effect. We need this nice.
Exactly. Nailed it.
Wow. That's going to be a screenshot for you. Jeez. I am now covered in beer. What the hell?
That's going to be the first reel of the outtakes. I think that's perfect. I love it.
Does this happen to all your guests? Or are you like, yeah, don't open it yet?
This is actually a prank show, Rand. We do this to everyone. Yeah, some
son of a gun. I knew it. First the anarchist jurisdiction. Now this.
There you go. Right. Exactly.
Oh, man. Sorry, my floor is now covered in beer. I'll have to, well, we can clean that up post-show.
Well, fantastic. Well, you are a man who needs no introduction. I have been just a massive fan. I mean, I started in 2007. You have been a mainstay throughout. Since I've been doing this show, I've gotten a chance to talk to so many great people. Your name comes up all the time, just your generosity. Mike King, Will Cricklow, these are people all talk about you so positively, and you're such a generous contributor to the SEO community. So it's a big gift for us to get you on. Thank you.
Oh, no, it is my pleasure to be here. I'm glad we got to do this. It's, everybody needs a beer at 2 p.m.
There you go. Well, I mentioned I just watched you last week at the White Spark conference, and you gave a great talk about, I wish I had this talent for coming up with topics, but you wanted to, encourage marketers to be less reliant on the duopolies of Facebook and Google.
Yeah.
You don't need to convince me of this, but I wonder, is this what SparkToro's mission really is? Is this what you guys, is this part of the mission statement of the company you're now the CEO of?
It's interesting. I kind of think about it the other way, Mark. Like, I almost think about my personal mission is help create more opportunity distributed to more people and companies instead of concentration of sort of, wealth and advertising dollars and power and influence and domination all to a couple people and a few companies, right? And I think one of the key ways to do that is to, talk about it on shows like yours, at events like Darren's, right? And another big way to hopefully do that is with software. Right? Like show people where they can actually go and influence their audiences that aren't just Facebook and Google. And if they're going to use Facebook and Google, give them opportunities to discover, ad targeting opportunities and like optimization techniques inside their campaigns that are going to make those campaigns more efficient and effective. Because my God, I mean, the amount of wasted dollars that Facebook and Google have, they could easily, you know this, they could
Yes.
easily make it such that our campaign targeting was far, far better. In fact, historically, it used to be. There's no privacy implications there. Like they use this stuff as justification for basically just stealing dollars from small and medium businesses and agencies and consultants and organizations of all kinds and putting and lining their pockets with it. And that's not innovation. Like,
Yeah.
what do we want
Well,
from big tech companies? If you're going to be a big, rich tech company, you better be creating some awesome shit.
yeah.
Right? Like I
Yeah.
want more Google Maps. Google Maps was transformative. That was incredible. Project 5 from a few years ago. Like these are great initiatives. And instead Google's just pouring it into, okay, we need more money. So
Hide
let's
my
make
search
advertising
terms.
suck more.
Yeah, like so we're filming this at the end of September. This is the big topic in paid searches. They're hiding a percentage of search terms now. So people are advertising on terms they don't even know what they're spending money on. And your friend Will Reynolds has done a bunch of stuff on this. He's outstanding. Go get him, Will.
Oh,
Facebook,
God.
Facebook is there's very little effort to learn from the last election cycle, I feel like. And so basically, I would say I'm on board with you.
Yeah.
I would like to be less reliant on Facebook and Google. For those who didn't watch your whole presentation, how do I do that? How do I? I'm convinced.
Yeah,
what are some logical first steps?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the clear and obvious ones is if you can test or create a test period. Let's say, if you're an agency, I think you have to run this by your client. If you're in-house, you have to run it by your team, your boss, your CEO, right? But I think one of the great things you can do is to test taking away a portion of your sort of worst spent or lowest ROI advertising dollars. That might be on the broadest terms and phrases in Google. That might be on the parts of the display network that are working worst for you. Maybe that's broad display instead of retargeting. That could be in Facebook on, audiences that aren't performing as well. And instead of experimenting with throwing more thousands and tens of thousands of dollars at those campaigns, take some of that budget and put it into other practices that you think are likely to have longer term, harder to prove ROI, but significant brand lift and impact. And that could be, I think some of the obvious ones are SEO, right? Organic search.
Sure.
Content marketing, absolutely. We've all seen the power of that. I don't think anyone can deny it anymore.
Right.
Social media marketing, still potentially very transformative if you can reach the right people at the right times. I think that there's huge opportunity in episodic content. So, podcasts and shows like this one, webinars, video series, a YouTube channel, crafting that content and getting it out there right now is incredible. I think there's lots of opportunity in broad digital PR, right? Finding those publications and sources of influence that reach your audience and then going and pitching them, pitching that op-ed, pitching that guest contribution, getting included on a list of tools, going and doing, on SERP SEO, where you're sort of looking at what comes up in Google's rankings and trying to influence those sites and pages. That kind of stuff is, it's not going to show you like, well, you got 7 clicks and those 7 clicks brought you 1 conversion and that 1 conversion was worth $922 lifetime value. You won't see that, right? You don't get those numbers, but when you see the long-term lift in terms of, oh, look at our branded search traffic climbing. Oh, hey, look at our direct traffic growing. Oh man, we got more subscribers to our email newsletter. Right. Oh man, an email newsletter subscriber is worth X amount in lifetime value because we can retarget to them and blah, blah. Like when you start thinking holistically, these opportunities really become appealing.
I'm with you. I love that talk. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about how SparkToro is helping to bridge that. So we're hot off a blog post you just wrote or a post about how, one of the questions you said you found a lot was, how do we use SparkToro? So I thought
totally.
I thought I would try it before we talked. And
sweet. Yeah.
One of the things I want to thank you for, we're a podcast. I'm always trying to find more interesting guests like you. And you have this feature where I can find, I want people who have a podcast because they're probably more practiced. They have interesting things to say. We can kind of, maybe they'd have me on their podcast. And so it's great. So I use it. I found Marie Haynes, who I've been a longtime fan of, didn't even know she had a podcast until I used this tool. So thank you. There's another use case you can add to your next blog post, I suppose. But I love that feature. People will link to the post in the show notes, but what are some other ways people are using this for digital PR, for content marketing? There's some great examples, and you put in there actual feedback from actual people, which is outstanding.
Yeah. I mean, this was one of the things I wanted to do was like, okay, if I'm, I feel like anytime you're creating content that is promoting something that you do, if you're sort of I don't know what to call it, just like a generally non-promotional, humble person by nature, you feel weird and guilty about it. And like, I don't know if you have this, right? But like when you get on your show, you don't want to talk about like, oh, well, our agency did this and look how we helped this client. And like,
Agreed.
It just feels weird, right? To be self-promotional in that way. Like in an ideal world, somebody else is promoting you. Like you said, you go on someone else's podcast, they ask you about like, what's your agency up to? And you talk about it, right?
Right.
And so I think when I was writing this post over the last few days, because it was very clear, we'd sent out a big email blast. I think that was last week. And I got just this like overwhelming number of replies, and people asked a bunch of questions. I included some of the email screenshots in there, about like, okay, this sounds cool, but like, what are people doing with it? Or how does it help me? Or how does it help my agency? How does it help my marketing team? And so Casey was like, Rand, Casey's my co-founder at SparkToro, for folks who don't know. He's like, you have to write this. Go. That's your weekend, man. Get to work. Like, he does not, dude, my co-founder takes no guff. It's
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, in a good way. But so as I'm setting to work writing this, I'm like, okay, let me go. I've favorited and like saved all these tweets and LinkedIn posts and Facebook posts from people who've, talked about how they've used the product. I'm like, yeah, let me just feature them, right? Let me have them tell the story kind of for me. And I think that makes it flow a little easier. And it's also nice, right? Because someone said something awesome about SparkToro, like I get to promote whatever, their work, their agency, link to their website, help them out. I like that kind of reciprocity in business.
Oh, I definitely resonates with me. Yeah. I wanted to tell you one more use case if you're up for it. I know we said it's hard to be promotional, but I'll promote to. So at SearchLab, one of the things that's hard with small businesses, finding link opportunities is a challenge.
Totally.
So what we try to do is, you heard this all at Darren's conference, we want to be active members of our local community. And as an example to our clients, I often say, my passion is dogs. That's why there's a dog in our logo. And lab is my dog's a Labradoodle. And so it's kind of a double entendre with a science laboratory and the dog. And so I put in there dog rescue, and then I could use the location finder to find only businesses in greater Chicagoland.
Yep.
I think I'm pretty knowledgeable about this topic, and all of a sudden I could create a list of a bunch of other link prospects or sponsorship opportunities for SearchLab or for my client if they wanted to do this too. So this is a use case, I think, for small businesses as well.
Yeah. And one of the things, that I love that you can do, and a bunch of small local businesses have done this, is they'll plug in a broad topic area for my audience frequently talks about, or if they're more B2B, right, they might have like a job title that they're targeting. They'll plug that into my audience uses these words in their profile, right? And then when you add that geo limiter, the add location field, you can get this like sense of, oh, these are the popular publications in this region that are followed by people. And it's weird to me because it's often very different from what you get if you just search Google or Google News for that region, because Google's ranking algorithm is very different. It has like this relevancy component that's very different from how popular and broadly reaching is a publication. And so, that used to be the case. Like you used to be able to go into, what was that? I think it was when it was called AdSense, that you could go into Google's AdSense tool and you could be like, hey, what's the most popular publication in this topic or in this area or with this group? You can't do it anymore. But SparkToro kind of brings that back, right? Like a little bit of that idea of, okay, what is a publication that reaches this group? And then if you can figure out like, oh man, this publication's huge in Chicago. It's huge with dog lovers. Like, boom, that's reaching a bunch of my audience. That in many cases, it's not just that you can get a link from it. It's that link is worth so much more than just a link. Right? Because you are actually getting that branded impression. And as you and I know, when it comes to small businesses, like the hardest part is brand recognition and brand affinity. Like it's so difficult to just stand out from the rest of the crowd. You know, whatever you're looking for, I don't know, what's the place you bring your dog and they like shampoo you?
Groomer. Yeah, like a dog groomer.
Yeah, like a groomer, right? So if you are a groomer and you want to stand out, you need people to like remember your name, like to think of you so that when they browse through search results or social or Facebook, or they see your ad or you're retargeting them or they're driving by your place, they're like, oh, I have an association with that place. I remember them. I have some positive impression of them. And that will be why you go there, right? Oftentimes word of mouth is involved in that too, but that memorability is so hard. And so if you can get mentioned in 4, 5, 6, 10 of the places that your audience is likely to be,
fantastic.
Game changer.
Well, it's a great tool. I'm going to keep playing around with it. I'll let you know what I find.
Yeah, there's fun stuff in there.
One of the cool things that you guys do is 3 days before you're going to hit the person's credit card, you'll send this. Is this still something you do?
No, I don't think we're ever going to stop. Like it's
you're not like every other like nobody does this. This is like this isn't good for revenue. What gives? Why would you do this?
So this is the crazy part. Yeah. So for folks who are listening and are like, what are they talking about? So we send an email a few days. I think it's 2 or 3 days before we're going to charge a credit card, right? So, you know, if you sign up for a SparkToro subscription, you maybe are paying us whatever, $150 a month on your credit card, your corporate card. And, you know, at the end of 31 days or 30 days, whatever, you know, it's going to charge again. And rather than just charge you and then send you the receipt or update your account, a few days before you get charged for the first time, we send a, hey, heads up, reminder, we're going to charge you in a few days. If you want to cancel, if you're not using it, just click this button, like click to this link. You can cancel right there or downgrade your account or whatever you want to do. And then, you know, we mention in the email, we're like, we know SaaS companies do not send emails like this because it's really bad for revenue. Because a ton of people, you know, it's like a gym membership or your, I don't know, whatever it is. You got an Apple TV account and you stopped watching the last show on there and you're like, oh man, that's been on my credit card for 6 months. I haven't even logged in.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. And it's, you know, it is bad for revenue to send a notification email like that. But it's not about that for us, right? Like, I think it's about building long-term trust between Casey and I and all of our customers, right? Between SparkToro and people who use us. And in my opinion, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, if SparkToro is still around, that will be one of the big reasons that people still love and recommend us, even if they're not using the product, because they will remember that they had this very different positive experience, that we did something that nobody else was doing that seemed like a short-term revenue hit, and probably is, in exchange for being good guys.
Yeah. It reminds me of a story from the book that's right behind you there. I was just reading the audiobook. Whoever you had read that audiobook, fantastic job. He sounded exactly like
thank you. I'll have to tell that person when I see him in the mirror later.
No, there's a story in the book where somebody has this great idea where it's like, if they want to cancel, we should make them call. Because if they call, it'll be too much work and they'll just stay on and we'll get more revenue. And you were like, yeah, this could potentially be like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Like it wasn't a small chunk of change.
No, we're talking about probably $1 million plus in revenue for Moz, at least.
And it was a non-starter with you. So I think this is something you've had for a long time. I think it's a great, you're a great businessman for this. I mean, I think it helps us for this kind of reason.
Or a lousy businessman and a good person.
Good.
That's what I want more of in the world, right?
Yeah.
I want more lousy business people. Like, how do I extract wealth and revenue at all costs, and more good people in the world? So if you're not willing to lead by example, who are you, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things, the reason I think this is such, I do think you're a good businessman, is because you had done some research about people who stuck with Moz's tools, and they had been active on your blog. They had maybe gone to MozCon. They had watched Whiteboard Fridays. Those are the people who you want. And if you you kick them when they're down, they maybe need to cancel because business is slow, or they could come back. But if you kind of make it impossible, that leaves a taste in their mouth where they're never going to come back. I wonder if you could reflect on that a little bit.
So my hope is that is true. My suspicion is it's very difficult to say from a data perspective. Like, I think you'd have a hard time proving that to, a venture investor or, a board or something like that. I think that'd be a hard sell. I know that, for example, Uber and Lyft both tried to put together, some people internally at those companies. I knew some people who work there both on the marketing and also on the sort of product design side. And I know that they tried to build business cases for, friendlier sorts of billing and kinder sorts of customer service, and like more generous refunds and all this kind of stuff, on the presumption of, hey, if people have a positive brand impression of our company, they will use us more, we'll be more likely to get that extra 10%, 20% of rides, and that's worth it to us, et cetera, et cetera. And they could not make the case, right? Wow. It was not, it was a non-starter. I think Airbnb had a really similar phenomenon with people trying to make the case internally. I think you can read about this on, is it The Verge that wrote about it, or The Outline, somebody like that. Maybe it's Kara Swisher. And basically with Airbnb, they were trying to create more of this, whatever you want to call it, brand safety or trustworthiness, so that when you go to an Airbnb and it's not what you expected, there's a cleanliness problem, there's a, the listing didn't match what you actually got in the room or the house or the apartment, all those kinds of things that, they would be much quicker to rebook you, much quicker to refund you, all this sort of stuff. And up until, I think it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was that big news story about people who were getting mistreated. There was a bunch of, articles about like racial bias on Airbnb. Will Reynolds, who we mentioned earlier, he had a story about like him trying to book an Airbnb. I mean, Will is a very wealthy guy, right? Like he's got money, Sears doing great, right? Like all this kind of stuff. But when he tried to book an Airbnb, it would get rejected, and then suddenly snapped up. And then when his wife changed the profile photo to her picture, boom, suddenly accepted everywhere. Okay, that's a lot of bullshit, right? Like we know what's going on.
Yeah, right.
But in any case, right? Like, so this, these types of cases have been made at a lot of businesses. And I think, my philosophy on this, Mark, is maybe you can't make the business case. So what? How is that the thing that matters? How did that become what we all strive for? That is a broken culture. That's a broken society. That's a broken economic model. I have no interest in participating in that or furthering it or benefiting from it or helping anybody else who wants to do it that way. That's just.
Well, amen. I think that's outstanding. Well, we talked about the book. I want to make sure people who are listening, I'm an SEO, but you don't have to be an SEO at all to love this book. It's a fantastic book. I recommend it. I'm in an entrepreneur group. I said everybody in my entrepreneur group should read this. You don't have to be an SEO to love it. You know, I've been doing this for 3.5 years. We started in March 2017, and it's so, you know, I think people always think it's a straight line to success. If I look back at 3 years, I would be pretty proud, but like, it's been some bad times. Like, we had some rough moments with people, and with like, just, we didn't deliver when we should have delivered. And I just want to commend you for this book. What was it like writing it and having people respond to you?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of exactly what you just said. Like, a lot of people who said, oh man, I built my business and we went through so many of the same mistakes and challenges and struggles and emotions. Because building a business is a very emotional experience. It's a very human experience, right? It's trying to make something from nothing and trying to work through all these challenging human situations with other people, because you're hiring them, you're working for them. I also have seen a lot of surprising applications or surprising people applying it. Like, there was a group of doctors who had it in their reading group at I think it was a hospital in Cleveland. And they emailed me and were like, hey, would you send us some signed copies? Cause like our monthly like doctors reading group has been getting, I thought, gosh, this is really Lost and Founder applicable to that. I had a fun, do you know, Mark, Andrew Warner runs Mixergy?
I don't, I'm sorry.
He's like relatively big time sort of podcaster, video series guy does a lot of interviews in I would say mostly tech and startup world.
Okay.
But so I was on Andrew's program maybe like right after the book came out, and he's a very different style of interviewer, a little more aggressive. I think it works well, right? He's a good interviewer for sure, but he'll just sort of like put you up against the wall with his questions, which I think his audience really enjoys. And one of those was, Rand, why did you write this book when you could have sold 1 million copies of an SEO book? Mm-hmm. Like, why would you do that? You know, your audience wants an SEO book. Why are you writing about entrepreneurship and like the tough parts of founding a company and, that sort of thing? And I mean, the answer was, as you might imagine, pretty obvious. Like, it ain't about the money. Right. It's not about the sales, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to help people through this painful part of things. And there's lots of good SEO information on the web, and that changes like every other day anyway. So
that's awesome. I think there are a couple of things from the book that I didn't know that much about. Like, I didn't know about raising money or the venture capital world or the world of Silicon Valley. Yeah. I'm curious, when you started SparkToro, did you raise any money, or are you your own boss?
We did, but we mostly raised money, totally honestly, from people like you, right? So awesome. Essentially, it was a lot of like agency owners, some friends in like the Seattle startup network, a few folks from around the world. Massimo Carusi from Italy, who started what's it called? The ad service that was bought by. Oh my gosh! All right, I'll come back to you with his info. Lisa Ditlevson from Verve Search out in the UK. Lots of other Chris from 97th Floor. A lot of those kinds of people, and it's a very different round. It's not venture. We're an LLC. We basically have the ability to pay back our investors and then pay dividends on our profits, which is kind of old school.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. And then we could talk about the book all day, but I cherry picked a few things.
Yeah.
You have this phenomenal chapter about core values and tag fee and how this came about, and how you used it to like hire a diverse staff, and how you corrected that from the beginning, and how you would hire and fire based on the core values. I wonder, I heard a story. We have core values. I'm looking at the sign right now. It's right there on my wall. I heard a story when we were coming up with ours that somebody said, well, our core value is hard work. And they said, well, are your people hardworking? He said, no, that's why we have to make it a core value, so they work hard. And so there are all these misconceptions about core values that they should be something you aspire to. What did you find that people are getting wrong about these? Because you guys just nailed this. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be totally honest. I think we had a lot of ups and downs with core values and to what degree we nailed them or not. I think if you had asked people inside Moz, at various points along the journey, there would have been a lot of variance in terms of people saying, yes, Moz is reflecting its core values and living up to them. And in fact, I was on Moz's board, right? After I left the company, and I encouraged them very strongly. I was like, hey, I think the values of Moz have changed, and I encourage you to reflect on what the new values are and adopt them and get rid of tag fee. Like that's not what is happening here anymore. You need to go discover what the ones that you new leadership team value and make those the things that are, going to be held to account, because it's kind of a mess otherwise. And yeah, so I think we had a lot of challenges with it. I would say that when it worked really well because we were both hiring for and internally promoting and rewarding for those values. And we were doing that in a transparent and trustworthy way and consistent way. Like if you were working at Moz, you could have seen, oh, this person was whatever, negative in this meeting, and they were very direct with their, boss about it. But instead of being called out or punished for that, they were rewarded because they are representing transparency and authenticity in that. Now, hopefully they were also doing it in an empathetic way. And if they weren't, then that could be called out, right? But sometimes that worked really well. I think those first like 5-6 years after tag fee was created, which was probably about the 2008 to 2013 period, like that was maybe the golden age for it. And then I think when you bring up the one of hard work, I don't know, Mark, so personally, hard work doesn't really resonate with me, because you can work hard and get nothing done, or you can work hard and get a lot done and it is not the right things to get done. Or you can work hard and get the right things done and burn yourself out and make yourself miserable to be around and miserable to all the other people around you and drag their work down.
Right.
So I feel like hard work is maybe it works okay in a manual labor sort of situation where you're not on teams, and so people around you aren't really being exposed to any toxicity that you might bring from that. Right. But it's not one that resonates with me very well. I don't think it's specific enough.
I get it. Well, again, I could talk about this. I want to hear about MVPs versus EVPs. Oh, yeah. I want to hear about. Sorry, I don't need to. No, that's okay. But all these things are amazing.
You're the one feeding me beers. Like
I know.
I'm gonna go off on tangents when we're drinking.
I'm to blame. But no, I do want to get to everyone's favorite part of the show, which is Greg Gifford throws me a question with no context, and I'm meant to ask it to the guest without really knowing anything. On this one, I know a little bit because I do follow your Twitter.
Okay.
But
yeah.
He said, if you had one last meal, would it be al pastor tacos, pasta, or steak?
That's a hard one. Also, al pastor is a very specific taco. pasta is an extraordinarily broad category.
That's right. Again, don't blame the messenger. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. I think right now, today, I'm a little more pasta obsessed than anything else. So I'm probably going to go with that. Last night I made pesto. And today my hands are like incredibly sore. And you have to like hold the mortar and pestle. It's about the size of this microphone, right? And so you're holding this thing and just like grinding into the mortar. It's almost an hour of work, like stop and start, just grinding up the leaves, and man. But I got like 120 active minutes according to Fitbit, because your heart rate's elevated the whole time you're doing it. You basically burn all the calories you're going to eat right before you eat.
Oh my gosh. For those who don't know either, I'll link to this. You gave the greatest tutorial on how to cook a steak on one of Greg's videos. It was astonishingly good. And it's actually how I make steak now. It's very good.
Right. Because once you try it, you can't go back.
I never took it out of the refrigerator long enough. That was my main. I always seasoned well. I always, overseasoned all that stuff. But getting it to room temperature is crucial. I'll link to the tip.
Yeah, I was shocked by the salt aging in the fridge. Is just, it's a ludicrous technique, right? It seems weird. Like wait, you want me to put this in my refrigerator with no covering with a bunch of salt on it and then just leave it there for a few days? Won't that seems like it's going to be bad for everybody. And in fact, no, it's incredible. I just did it with a bavette steak, cooked it in some butter. What was that, about a week ago? Oh my God, it's so good.
Outstanding. Well, follow Rand's Twitter for all things food related. It's very entertaining. Rand, thank you so much for coming on. This is a huge gift for us. Like I said, I could talk Lost and Founder forever. You've been just a huge help to my career. I mean, you've been so generous with everything. I've maybe watched a gazillion Whiteboard Fridays with you and read every blog post you've come up with. So I hope I can see you at a conference somewhere in person sometime soon.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Be nice. Great. I think we're gonna have to settle in here for 2020, but maybe 2021 we'll have a steak or tacos or pasta together. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome. All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much for having me. Really, really appreciate it. And cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
As my people say, l'chaim.
L'chaim, yes. Good luck with the mess too.
Thanks. All right, take care.
All right, thanks, Rand. I'll talk to you.
Cheers.